There.
Cybiotics is interesting.
Cool.
Hi, I'm Danielle.
Who's totally registered for the class now?
I'm super registered.
Woo!
I'm in the class.
Yeah.
I'm a fourth year CM. I'm a resident semester, and I joined because I wanted to go out and sing, I guess, and this seems like the appropriate class for that.
Cool. Okay, we'll try to make it quite thrilling of an adventure then for you.
I'm Anna. I'm a third year computational and media major, and I took this class because it was required, but I chose this specific one because it seemed pretty cool in the description, and then I stayed because I obviously thought it was pretty cool when I got here.
Nice. Where'd you see the description?
There's like I don't know if it's like SGA that does it, but there's like a, what's it called, degree works, I guess. You can like click on the class number, and it'll give you a description of what the class is like. And then I got your email, and it was saying all that stuff, and I was like, oh, sounds cool.
Cool.
Alexandra Bezzoso, and I'm a third year staff major, and I'm taking this class because it sounded really interesting on the overview, and also I've never dealt with any of the electronics, as I told you, that we're going to be dealing with in this class, so I am excited
Cool. This is great.
to learn.
And like I said earlier, for any of you who have no programming or electronics experience, don't worry. My background comes from basically teaching. I don't know if I've ever actually had the luxury of teaching anyone who actually knew electronics when I taught them electronics. It was always like 8-year-old Chinese kids in China when I worked in China, who also didn't really speak English that well. So that was kind of difficult, but it worked out great. Or it was biology field scientists who like spend their days macheting through the jungle and had never really touched computers other than like for writing, journal documents and stuff like that. So I've tried to teach a lot of people hard topics such as like soldering and hooking up sensors and all this kind of stuff. And we've all made it work in the past. And we have a really nice little class here, and everyone seems quite enthusiastic. And so I think that's kind of the main thing we need going on. We'll be able to handle it all. It's going to be really fun and cool. So a couple things. Now that the class is getting a little more solidified, there's some things that I want to try to do every class period. First, I want to have ambient video, ambient environments that you're exposed to while the whole class is going on. So today, since we're learning about me, I have a leafcutter ant who's carrying my name around, walking along a little path. So these are going to be to just kind of implicitly expose you to different forms of living creatures in their own environments that I've encountered or recorded before. Does anybody remember what the environment that I was showing the last time was?
That was pretty
Yeah, so that was a couple weekends ago. I went backpacking up to this mountain to see the Perseid meteor shower. We went to the top of this mountain, and there was sunflower fields just all over the top, and the whole sky was clear. And there was just bees and Japanese beetles flying all over the place, like swarming. So I just tried to collect some video for that. I'm going to try to load those all onto all these ambient videos. Will also probably be on the website too. So I'm going to try to provide as much stuff for you guys as we can. And if there's ever anything you guys are like, I wish I had this on the website, or I want this, shoot me an email. Let me know. Cool. So are you guys ready for like formal. Look, Andy's got a PowerPoint. What a proper teacher. Now you're in just a totally regular class. Also, I'm going to make one other quick rule. There are 7 people in this class. This is the dividing line. Everybody's got to be in front of this line. Unless we're like working around in the class. Stay close. I talk incredibly loud, but I want you guys to hear.
Am I allowed to teach?
Yeah, take that. You can sit with Conrad.
I won't be distracted.
He won't bite, just don't bite him. Okay, so I want to tell you guys a little bit about how I gave you guys kind of an overview of the syllabus last time, right? I gave you a syllabus already. Yes, okay. Let's see your syllabus real quick. This is the syllabus that may actually be 2 syllabi. Yes, it is. And I did this on purpose so that today I could use this extra syllabus to reference. But anyway, I went over the syllabus a little bit with you guys on Tuesday. And today I want to talk about how the class kind of came about in a more formal way, and also who I am, why I'm researching sensors and digital media and animals all at the same time. So I was going to give you guys just a fun little history of this with lots of pictures. The pictures, the better. And in general, the main goal of this class is that there exists a lot of human solipsism. Do you guys know what solipsism is? Solipsism is kind of the belief that nothing else really exists except for yourself. That you're kind of, the center of the universe. And us humans do that all the time. For instance, other than Conrad here, not many people could tell me what other non-human animals are in this room in like 3 seconds. What else is in here? That's pretty good, yeah. So there's a couple of spiders over in that corner. There's a bunch of things, and whenever we build something, we always want to build it to kind of exclude other creatures as much as possible. We want this kind of sanitariness. We want to just obliterate everything else. And that's okay if you want to live a lonely life and don't want to be part of the entire amazing world of all these rich interactions that we're all part of, whether we want to or not. And this world offers all kinds of unique perspectives and ways of dealing with problems that we don't normally even think about. So the goal of this class is, it's an interaction design class, and the interactions we're going to be focusing on are between living creatures, specifically non-human living creatures, since we don't focus on them that often in most design things, and then digital artifacts. So both of these things have behaviors and can take in stuff from the real world. They can both take in changes in environments, and they can both process this kind of data, and they can also react back to the world. And we're going to kind of mash together these 2 different types of entities and hopefully build these systems that reveal something more about the living creature as well as the digital creature, and then possibly even ourselves. But anyway, where did this class come from? Where did Andy come from? Well, I didn't come from Galapagos. There's a great picture that I love of me in the Galapagos. So back in the day, I was an engineering and film undergrad at the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign. So in that kind of engineering side, I just went for 2 completely separate degrees, like 2 bachelor degrees. And on the engineering side, I focused a bit on kind of computer vision, because I really like cameras, and I saw them as like a cool, rich way of taking in all kinds of amazing information from the world. So I did a lot of like computer vision work. My like thesis project was we went to this place called Continental Data Label, and they made labels that included data to put on things. So like when Walmart has a sticker that says this refrigerator is $38, that's a Continental Data Label. But they had problems where the ink would like disregister, and so we made like a computer vision system that could let them know like, oh, our huge crazy printing press is out of whack on Tower 3, stuff like that. So that was cool. But then it was a little too corporate for me, just the strict engineering side. And I liked people, and how, despite what I may say all the time where I'm just like, non-human, always more non-humans. I do in fact like people. I like people a lot, and I like to try to help them out. And so after I graduated, in my kind of film side of thing, I launched a program called the Storytelling Studio, where we worked with kind of disadvantaged children and taught them how to create their own video animations and programming. And so I went to Ecuador for a bit, and I worked with these children who lived in like these really bad ghettos, and they were all kind of child laborers, so they all had like jobs. Like one kid would wake up at 4 a.m. every day and go collect cardboard to try to recycle it to get a few pennies to like bring home extra cash for his family. And our program was designed to kind of show them that there was lots of interesting things they could learn, and to try to help get them back into school, and then also make like fun, crazy videos. Has anyone tried to embed a YouTube video in a PowerPoint lately? It is super difficult. It's ridiculous. So this computer's not the best computer I've ever used. Anyway, I'll show you some of the videos after our intermission. So while I was also in Ecuador, I went with a scientific class, a biology class, who was going on kind of like a survey of different parts of Ecuador. So we went to the cloud forest, we went down to the plains, and then we also went to the Galapagos, which was amazing. So there's giant tortoises there. I fed them guayabas. They would walk up to you, feed them a big fun fruit. And this was like the actual school right there. It was just right on the beach. So you'd be in a class, and then you'd be in your class, and you'd be in your swimsuit already. You know, like taking your class, you just walk out on the beach and then go hang out and swim with sea lions. It was amazing. But anyway, there I did some documentary work for this class, kind of documenting their whole process. And then after all this, I lived in China for a year, where I got hired by a school to basically teach biology as well as kind of computer science and animation again. So I did more of these storytelling studio kind of things with my class in China. I had all these different classes, and they made some crazy videos, and I'll show you some of those too later now once we get this cooking. Anyway, after that, I went to Georgia Tech's digital media program. You guys are all CMs, so you've heard of us, right? Please, maybe? Okay, yeah, okay, good. So we're basically the graduate version of your guys' class. We explore computation as a form of expression. I'm jumping off the thing over there. I do a lot of jumping. And I did my master's project again back in, so I do a lot of documentary work. And my master's project was about how you can use kind of digital affordances within the actual workflow of a documentarian. So right now, usually you just go out, you film a bunch of stuff, then you have to bring home this big bucket of data, and you have to sort through it all later. It's like 2 separate steps. And that's why it's kind of hard for small independent filmmakers to churn out a bunch of documentary videos and stuff like that. What I was looking into was I've created an app for real-time annotating of data called Documatic, part of an idea of semi-automatic filmmaking. And what would happen is, I'm just one person. While I'm interviewing Eric here, I will be using my app, and it will be recording timestamps. So my camera's just rolling, I record it, and I ask him different questions about different topics, and every time he mentions, like, I have an example documentary about long dogs that are kind of longer than they are tall, and interviewing people in the park about if they like their dog, to be like all dachshundy, or if they like tall dogs better. Anyway, so let's say he's like, oh, I like tall dogs better, so I hit tall dogs, and then he's like, because of, their ears, and I have a little thing like, oh, okay, everyone's talking about their ears, tall dogs have better ears, or whatever. And so there's also just different questions you can pre-program in there, tag it all, then dump it all. Again, you still have this bucket of video over here, and then you have a bucket of kind of semantic data from your phone. And when you toss these both onto your computer, the semantic data and the video go all and they mix up, and there's a thing that parses it, and it automatically creates an edited version of a pre-edit of your documentary that you're hoping to show. So that's what I explored. At the same time, during my master's, for my actual job at Payton Bills, I worked in the computer science robotics lab doing bio-tracking work. So lots of behavioral scientists, they have problems like, I have 1,000 ants in a big bucket, and I want to know who's talking to who and when and for how long. Basically, animal biologists who study behavior, they're like big gossip hounds for all of their creatures. And it gets really hard when you have things like ants, because ants, they're almost all clones of each other. They look super similar. There's tons of them. And we try to have this like hypothesis that, oh, we're in a flat thing, they're all on one plane. But sometimes they change shape. They walk on top of another ant, they curl up into a ball. They do all kinds of things that make it very hard to track. So that's what I worked on for a bit, doing lots of bio-tracking. I also did some more like kind of artier versions of bio-tracking. This is my pet tortoise, Vanya. She's a Russian tortoise, and she's very nice. And I created a project where I would track her around my apartment. So I actually mapped out my whole apartment, and I wanted to see why she went where she went. And I didn't really come up with that many conclusions, but it was an interesting way to kind of explore her behavior. So her crawling around. Anyway, that's super fun. You can see that. Then, in my master's, and now even more so in my PhD, I worked with the Digital World and Image Group, dwig.lmc.gov. And what we look at is situated digital performances. We focus on interactions between people and their environments in the real world, and we look at how digital technology can be tossed into the mix to create richer or more interesting interactions with these people and their environments. Now, our goal, however, is not to have people, there's a lot of times when people are like, let's toss, it's great when people have fun in the park and toss football back and forth. But what if we toss in some digital stuff, and now they put on glasses and their football looks like a banana. And so there's a lot of times when people toss digital stuff into things. and then the focus becomes, hey, look at this digital thing we have. Our goal with our performance and crafty group is bringing people more into contact with each other or parts of their environment that they may not have been noticing. And it's through the digital medium that we provide these new potential opportunities for encountering. But we're not necessarily putting focus onto these digital devices. I'll explain that more in a second. So I think this should work. Okay. Nice. So here's a video.
Paint Pulse is a project by Georgia Tech's Digital World and Image Group. In our lab, we explore modes of digital intervention in performance, space, and craft in order to create new interactions between people and their environments. Paint Pulse is inspired by the traditional Turkish marbling technique called Ebru. In this craft, artists and practitioners apply special paints to the surface of water and manipulate the abstract forms into colorful, psychedelic designs. Paint Pulse attempts to add additional digital elements to this craft without fundamentally altering the original interaction. To the traditional Ebru toolkit of paints, styluses, and combs, we add ferrofluids and programmable electromagnets. To start, we use special water marbling inks that we load into syringes for precise dispensing. Some of the inks we dilute and mix with ferrofluid in order to make the paint responsive to magnetism. The water substrate is loaded into our custom backlit painting tray, and the craftsperson drips paint onto the surface in the traditional Ebru style. Now, when the artist manipulates the paint, some drops respond in the normal way, while the Ferris paints demonstrate new behaviors. In the same manner that the original Ebru artist can select new colors of paint from different jars, the digital Ebru craftsperson can select new behaviors for the magnets using an analogous interaction. Dipping the stylus or rake into one of the lit, pulsing jars is sensed by the Arduino and changes the rhythm of the electromagnets to match. We also included a pulse sensor which can map the movement of the ferrofluid to the beating of your own heart. Mirroring traditional Ebru, designs can be saved onto sheets of paper. Business cards, wedding favors, and even 3D origami shapes can be similarly imprinted. Paint Pulse provides a new way of exploring the materiality of an ancient craft through digitally manipulatable behaviors.
So that gives you kind of a good overview, too, of kind of what our lab's like. And that project kind of epitomizes how there's these digital devices that are definitely in the mix in this craft or in this performance or whatever we're doing. But the goal isn't just to sit there and be like, wow, this Arduino's doing all kinds of stuff. It's instead to just enable the person to have these new kind of superpowers or abilities within their craft. It's sort of like, our motto kind of follows the old Mitch Hedberg joke. Do you guys remember Mitch Hedberg, a comedian? He has a joke that the great thing about escalators is that they can never break. They can only become stairs. So our goal with a lot of our projects is the digital component. If it breaks, you still have the original thing. If the Arduino was shut off, you could still do the regular Ebru like you were normally doing it. But with it on, you now have these kind of additional powers and additional ways to interact. Anyway, so Digital World and Image Group, I also had another project called Mark Your Territory, where I explored, it was kind of a design critique of a popular platform called Foursquare, where I would actually go and pee on places like animals do in order to mark their territory. So I can check into Foursquare by actually urinating on a place. Anyway, we're going to read a paper about this later in the semester. So anyway, that started bringing me, all this performance and craft stuff started bringing me further into kind of the real world. And as my employment suggests, I've always been very into biology and stuff like that. And so I kept slowly trying to look more and more past just humans in their environment and see what we can do to kind of bring animals more into the mix. So there's a great project that I really like called Ducks Feed People that I made, where, have you guys ever been to Piedmont Park? Raise your hand. Great. Piedmont Park's great. You gotta go there. You gotta go. Okay. Well, it's the huge giant park in town. Even our friendly non-human primate has been there. But anyway, so if you've ever been there, there's this bridge, and there's these ducks below. So Eric here's the ducks. And the people walk by, and they're up here, the ducks are down there, right? I have the bread. Oh, I want entertainment. Dance for me, ducks. I toss bread to you. And the ducks down below, they flap and they swim and they basically, dance on our command. So there's this very, very strict kind of power structure in place. Us humans are feeding the ducks. So I wanted to see if we could add a little bit of a digital intervention to kind of invert this power structure. So what I did was I built this big duck head with our digital world image group. And then we hooked up a little camera that sensed whenever ducks came to a certain place. And so whenever the ducks would come to a certain place, if there was enough ducks, then this big duck head up here would start spewing candy up in the human zone. And so then, of course, there's kids in the park, and they all go, running, grabbing all the food. And so now the shoe's on the other foot. The ducks are making us humans run around and act silly. And then the humans are like, I need another Tootsie Roll, I'm jonesing for it. They can kind of complete this feedback loop and start tossing bread and stuff down to the ducks to try to lure them back into this place. But it's only if the ducks go like, I'm going to go get your food now, but maybe later you're going to have to give me some really good bread or something to get your precious candy. So that was kind of one of the earliest examples of a project where I was really trying to build some sort of feedback and connections between humans and some of the animals that they were with. This led me into just researching kind of biological media in general. And we're going to have a different lecture where we kind of just talk about biology and media. But once I started looking into it, it's kind of a new, cool field. It's very hypey, but there isn't that much. People haven't really expressed what are the kind of cool things about biology and media, and haven't really separated things that are very different from each other. They've all lumped them together as oh, that's biology and media. It's biology and media. So you guys are all CM students, so you guys talk in the language of computational affordances and stuff, right? You guys have Janet Murray's, does she teach a class for you guys?
Try really hard, yeah.
Okay.
You can.
Cool. But anyway, so it's just kind of all biology and media are all just lumped together in one big thing. And so what I tried looking into was actually, pulling these apart by what are their different, what are their differences, what are their core affordances of different types of work. So there's lots of different things that are all lumped together, like biological artwork. So you'll go to an exhibition of biological media, and you'll see something as okay, it's a painting, but it has chicken in it. So it's biological media. Or there's things that are bio-inspired. This is a gecko bot. It's not alive. It has no living components in it, but it's inspired from something that was. So that's a whole other category of things. There's bioengineering. There's people who've grown their own tissues and stuff like that. This is Stellark, who planted an ear on his arm and then put a microphone inside of it. But it got all infected, and I think he had to get rid of it. There's actual biological incorporation into artwork, so artwork that incorporates biology. These artists grow these big sheets of grass. They lay a black and white stencil on top of the grass outside. The grass that receives lots of sunlight, because it's actually black and clear stencil over top of it. The grass that receives lots of sunlight creates lots of chlorophyll and photosynthesizes a lot. The grass that doesn't is paler, and so they can actually put photographs over there, so you have these kind of living photographs, which are really nice, right? There's other types of just biological incorporation, name's escaping me. Like just a shark in your tank, or chopped in half goat, kind of thing. There's also biological visualization, so like Casey Reese, I think. You guys know processing?
Yeah.
Processing. One of the founders of that, he works and does a lot of visualization artwork of biological stuff, such as like how to display a genome or things like that. So there's all this stuff. It's all just biological media. And what I was realizing was the thing that, the kind of category that fell under this that I was most interested in was this sort of cybiotic media. And who would like to, it's very simple, but who from our last class would like to explain to our newest member what this word that Andy made up is? Cybiotic media.
So basically there is biotic agent, as the diagram says, and the digital agent takes it in and then spits something back out to the biotic agent, and it just like continually reacts with each other. So instead of just like normal programming where it takes in information from its environment, it also spits it back out.
Exactly. So each part has an input and an output, and those inputs and outputs are linked into each other somewhat, so that they're both affecting how each other works. And so the word cybiotic comes from kind of kyberos or something like that, the Greek term that we use in cybernetics. And that actually means it's like an oar for steering your boat, like CYBR. That like prefix is like comes from an oar, and it means basically control, controlling, steering, and it's been incorporated for use in the whole field of cybernetics or control systems, where you have these systems that do things in the world and then receive feedback and then do things again in the world and kind of keep going like that in order to try to lead to some sort of desired outcome or something like that. The biotic part comes from a guy named Ingmar Rydell Cruz, who made these things that he called biotic games. And he wanted to use the term biotic games to denote that it was an actual creature instead of the term like biological games, because biological can mean that like, oh, I'm doing something with a chunk of my, muscle or something like that, or some sort of chunk, or it uses organic molecules. But he wanted to denote that it was in fact an actual living things that are kind of unique individuals that you're playing with. And he would make these great games, he's still making them, such as this is like soccer played with paramecia. So you have all these paramecia on this slide. You have a simple computer vision system that looks at all the paramecia and parses out where they're located. You have a controller that uses galvanotaxis, which is the ability of paramecia and lots of other little creatures to respond to electric fields. So he you press up on the controller, and then it applies an electric field going up in the little jar that all parameci are, and they start kind of swimming upwards. So you can kind of drive them around, but then you also learn they kind of react back sometimes, or they don't want to go that way, or they die. So there's all kinds of different things that happen. It's not just I'm driving something around. You receive this feedback from the creature itself. But anyway, once the simple computer vision works, they put in things like a digital soccer ball, and you actually play to try to get the soccer ball into the goal. But so he had the term biotic, and then I wanted to bring in kind of this emphasis on feedback between digital and living creatures. As I mentioned earlier, there was an animal behavior researcher, psychologist, you may recognize his name, B.F. Skinner. He worked on a project at the end of World War II where they wanted more precise missiles. I talked about this a little bit earlier. But so what they did was they would train these homing pigeons to like go to certain places. Then they would put a set of 3 of these pigeons into a missile, and they would be able to see through like a little window, and they would try to like, oh, I want to go there, I want to go there, and use 3 of them so that if one of them's like, I want to go here, and it's just wrong, you know to pick like the most consistent 2 out of the 3. This would actually guide the missile into its place and then blow up. But it ended up, we ended up winning the war, and they didn't actually completely start using pigeons and all missiles. But that's one of the earliest examples of such weird uses of cybiotic media. There's another bunch of cool projects that I'll talk with you guys about later. They're listed in your little book. But some of the things that I found interesting about cybiotic media in general were there's surprise elements. So like I said, if you're playing regular Pac-Man, there's usually doesn't happen where Pac-Man dies and he's just dead forever. But that can happen if you're playing Pac-Mesium, another one of Ingmar Rydell Cruz's biotic games, where your Paramecium just dies and doesn't work anymore. So there's always, and as we saw in last class, we had a play about surveillance and the government and Mary's dog, Maddie, and we didn't know how Maddie was going to react at the very end, but it turned out that Maddie loved the government and surveillance. So there's kind of a surprise element that worked into our narrative from the animal's own reactions to what was happening. What else? You're able to, you have one behavioral system over here, you have another behavioral system over here. The digital system you create and you program, and often these digital things can do stuff that we humans can't do. So I have a friend who needed to tap on these trees very rapidly. You need to tap like a woodpecker taps. But he couldn't do it with his hand. So we built this little robot that could, and it could tap exactly like a woodpecker taps. And it could do it consistently. Every tree he wanted to tap, it could do it like that. So we have one known system, and then we have one system that's a total black box. It has some sort of deep secret program inside of it controlling it. We have no idea all the different aspects of it. So we can kind of mash these up together, and by this being able to give us new ways of interacting, it can start revealing new behaviors that we may not have been able to see that the actual living creature starts doing because we apply this new digital creature to it. Another thing that's nice is it gives you necessary real-world engagement. If you have to have a living creature in your project, you can do lots of interaction design projects where you can just simulate it on a computer. You can simulate a living creature too, but you could just do the same thing on a computer and just be like, okay, well, instead of a person walking here, I'm just going to click here, here, here. So you can do lots of things with people just kind of on the computer. But this makes us actually go into the world. We're going to have field trips. We're going to walk around and see the amazing, wonderful, crazy world that's out there. and actually makes you engage with it and learn with it. Anyway, and this leads to lots of robust designs. There's lots of interaction design or electronics design where you go and you see an exhibit and people will be like, oh, you know, you pick up this controller and you swing it like this and these lights go on. Then you pick it up and you start swinging it and they're like, oh, no, wait, you can't turn around backwards. And then they're like, oh, okay. Or like, wait, you can't move more than 3 feet away from it. So that's kind of very like, or don't hold it so hard, you're gonna break it. So by having to interact with real creatures that we can't just say like, no, Maddie, or maybe with Maddie we could, because she was very well behaved, but maybe our mute primate is way out of control, and we can't, you know, tell our primate, oh, you know, stop doing that, you're gonna break it. So you necessarily have to investigate not only how to make your designs, but how to make them good, how to make them robust. So that's what's going to be nice about this for an interaction design class. And the final thing is it leads to lots of novel interfaces. So again, with just dealing with humans, there's lots of things we take for granted, and there's lots of things that we can use simple human hacks, like, oh, I need you to pick up this tape, and then it makes this rain fall out of the ceiling over there whenever you pull it. But then somebody starts pulling it, and they pull it too fast, and then you're like, no, you have to go slow, just count like 1, 2, 3, or something like that. What was I saying? Novel interfaces, yes. Basically, just that creatures can be very small. Sometimes we usually make all of our stuff as human size and human oriented. But creatures can be very small, or they can have big hoofs, and we go, hey, grab this tape, and it's not doing it that well. But if we need to make an interaction design for a horse, and we develop this cool stepping pad, it kind of brings our mind into a new space, and then suddenly we might realize, like, oh man, you know, I as a human could use this stepping pad, and that's a great way to make the rain come out of the ceiling back there, or things like that. So it's a good way to kind of expand your horizons and look into creating new types of interfaces, which is kind of the whole point of an interaction design class. Cool. Oh, you guys are going good. What we need right now, though, is we need a very short break. So what we're going to do is you guys all have 3 minutes, and you're going to work with Katie's pet Aaron. And you're going to create one more play. And, oh, I had an idea for the play this morning. What was it? Oh, you're going to have to make either a espionage play or a, like, hack 'em up thriller. Okay? So that's going to be, and it's going to have to be like 30 to 40 seconds again. And remember, in fact, we're going to, so that she doesn't listen to what you guys are discussing and react accordingly, we're going to, you're going to have to go to the back of the room. Is that okay? Okay. And then pretend like you're not hearing us. So you guys all discuss together what you're going to do with this primate, this ape-like thing. And you have 3 minutes to come up with the concept. Okay? And while you're discussing, I guess we'll have to think about the things that she can react to without being able to speak or hear anything that you say. So maybe she's just like, imagine like, what powers should we let her have? What can apes do?
So she can wash.
She can walk. Okay. Maybe she can react to things if things are like
She can
attacking
flail
her.
with her arms, like a
Okay.
reaction. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So yeah, go with that. So you have to kind of outline what are the things she can do and what you're going to use her for, and then come up with how you're going to make it into your thriller or espionage.
Can we use stuff in here too?
Huh?
Like, can we use stuff in the classroom?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
You have 1 minute and 30 seconds left.
Okay.
Ten seconds.
Yeah, we have 10
Nine.
seconds, and I don't know if you can set that up.
8, 7,
I have that
6,
green link.
5,
Okay, from the middle.
4,
No.
3,
All the time. Okay.
2,
It'll be obvious.
1.
It'll be super obvious.
Okay, great. Somebody fetch Aaron.
Well, let's go check. Larry, go get, yeah, go get. Where's my
You gotta grab her. She's mute and deaf.
I think she is. Yeah.
Okay. So Aaron here is our non-human primate of the day because I forgot to include the word non-human in my email to Katie. But this is going to be great. So let's see this amazing flick. I'm excited.
Okay.
Go get it.
We work at a bank, and this is our bank.
Yeah, go get her. We're leaving her, not him.
Oh,
Yeah.
come to our bank.
Yo.
We've been having a lot of robberies recently, so we need you to be the detective and find out.
And solve who has been doing.
But wait, I won't let you go because you're not doing that. You're helping us solve the problem.
And I'm the robber. Give me the money.
She's really
Really?
Brought the fish.
Yeah, we have lots of building action with our climax.
Our climax is right
Wow.
now.
Oh my. Okay.
It was actually a hacker
Like,
Beautiful. And did your skit end? Yes, take a bow. We're going to use a bowing as a signifier of the thing is over. Very good. Thank you, Aaron. You may return back to humanness.
All right, good. Descend into gradual
Very
chaos.
uncomfortable.
Cool.
Oh, hey, can I steal this bag?
And that was a good idea.
Yeah, that was good. That was very good.
Like that.
Yeah. Cool. So we explored a lot of the kind of dynamic nature of working with a non-human living system. Let's pretend that she was actually just Maddie, and then we had Maddie here again. What are some of the other kinds of interactions that we could have had with a dog that could have been incorporated or used in our little skit there?
It could have been like smells in order to find the robber or something like that. Or, yeah, that's how she could have like found or taken them.
So we could have had maybe like a system set up in the play where maybe if Eric was the robber or something and Maddie was trying to solve the case, we could like fill his pockets full of salami or something, and then Maddie would jump to him at the end or something like that. Cool. Any other ways of interacting with the dog anyone can think of?
I mean, she could have acted the same way and not been compliant and jumped up and taken the money and ran away.
Cool. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We could have had a story where she would have to fetch something and been like, Maddie, go fetch the robber, the culprit or something like that, and use that kind of like habit that she's perhaps familiar with. She can't fetch.
She's like, why did you throw that?
Well, try to think of some, so just give you guys some more like food for thought too. Some other things that we could do with something like a dog is try to map different things that the dog does to different things that happen in the story, different responses. So we could have something like a little accelerometer on top of Maddie's head or something, and we notice whenever she like goes bows or comes up, maybe that it could change the light, it could change like an ambient detail of how the skit's going, or it could provoke some sort of signaling noise that means like yes or no in the play, and then the actors can kind of respond to that. Other things, you could measure and then convert later would be maybe like an accelerometer on her tail, see how much she wags it, things like that. There's little circuits you can make out of fluffy yarn where you can see if something's being petted or not by measuring its change in resistance as it gets petted. There's all kinds of different parts of the creature for you to think about. And we haven't gone over like a whole sensors and stuff lecture yet, but in general, just try to think about like things that maybe you yourself, if you had infinite time like a computer does, or if you had super sharp abilities, that you could notice about your creature or interact with your creature. Things like that. And even something like a camera that could see wherever Maddie's eyes were pointed, even though dog eyes are a little bit more on the sides of their head, but they still have pretty binocular vision. Cool. It is now 1:02. Class ends at 1:25. Right. Perfect. This is good for me to know because I have another class. It looks like I'm going to be having my classes moved around a bit, so I'm going to have another class at 1:35. So I'm going to have to change my office hours around that are written on the syllabus. Originally I was going to have the 2 office hours that were directly after class for an hour. So those are probably not going to be available. I'll still have my Wednesday office hours that are from, I think, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. over in TSRV. But in terms of my office hours over here, possibly, how does the hour before class work for people? Is that good? Remain or nod? Yeah, we'll do nodding. I like that. You like dogs. Cool. Okay, so that's what it'll probably be. I'll probably be in that office every day before class for like an hour. Come and talk to me. And if these things don't work, you can always just email me and be like, "Oh, Andy, can we meet at this time or something?" We'll try to work it out. Cool. I I have a bit more presentation to show you, but yeah, I'll do that for a little bit, probably about 10 more minutes. Somebody time me. Can you time me and tell me like, hey, shut up, we need to do more things. And then we're going to glue on our tubs, okay? Continue. So yeah, Cybiotic media, super best kind of media, that's what I think. This also led me to, so if you're gonna do interaction design with animals, who best to learn from than biologists who study how to interact with animals all the time. So I worked with a lot of, here's a big word that you guys are going to learn that you may not have known before this class happened, but now you're going to totally know it forever. Ethologists. Ethologists, or the study of ethology, is the study of animals and their behavior in their natural environment. Ethology, animal behavior. Okay? And while I was working with these people, I kind of started mapping out their scientific process. How does their science usually work? And I'll give you more of a discussion later in the semester about my exact research. But I kind of mapped it out. People encounter some sort of weird, interesting phenomena. They're poking and trotting like, oh, I can't believe these millipedes. They always, they do this, or I poke it, oh, why does it curl up? You encounter all these things and raise all these questions. Then you start doing kind of more sets of informal experiments, like, okay, well, if I poke it once every hour, does it still curl up? Or does it only curl up when it's around the afternoon, and at night, it doesn't matter how many times I poke it. So you do like rapid fire shotgun of a bunch of these little experiments. Then you're like, there's something about this millipede curling, and I gotta get to the bottom of it. So that's when you set up your big official experimentation, and you take 1,000 millipedes, and you set up, you walk through and you poke them, and you videotape every one of your pokes every hour for 1,000 days, and you get all this data, and then you crunch it, and you have a bunch of stats, and you're like, it is proven that millipedes are on a curling up lunch break between 12 and 2 p.m. And then usually they get to this kind of final area where they write a journal article about it, and they present it, and peers go, I've been doing millipede research for 10 years, and my millipedes have never curled up for 2 hours during the middle of the day or something. And one of the things I noticed was that this middle part is really the only place that digital media or digital technology really touches their process. That's because they usually use it as a digital tool instead. They want to take all this data that they got from all their millipede pokes and churn through it more quickly or efficiently and spit out some charts. I have all this data and it tells me, oh, 43. Okay, good, the answer is 43, write my journal article. There's not many people using digital media on kind of the ends of this scientific process. So in my research, which I call digital naturalism, I'm focusing more on kind of these ends and how do we make digital tools that help us encounter phenomena with creatures in their natural environment, as well as once they experiment and they have all this data, how do we share this back out with the rest of the human world in ways that can more greatly engage them with the creatures in the same way that the original scientists discovered all this cool stuff. So I do all kinds of great field research. I've been down to Panama for the past 2 summers working with all these amazing people out in the middle of the neotropical rainforest. I have little projects like, in terms of like an experiential encounter with your creatures, I wanted to see if I could send Morse code signals with leafcutter ants. So leafcutter ants are special because unlike other ants that will just walk around something if it's in their way, leafcutter ants have these very designated highways. And if there's something in front of it, they're like, hey, what's going on here? And they walk up and they walk back and they're like, no, I'm supposed to walk right here. And so I made this little device that would be kind of a gate that would be controlled by a Morse code sequence. So the Morse code sequence I put in was digital media written out as long dashes and short dashes. Then I had a simple computer vision system at one end that would read in all of these, it would basically look for green pixels, the ants carrying big green leaves, and it would record it. And if you look through all these spikes, you can see fatter and thicker spikes, and it actually respell out the message for you. And so, does this help anyone? Is this, are we going to replace all of our internet and communication lines with leafcutter ants? No, we're not. It's horribly inefficient. It's very lofty. But what's interesting is it's a different way to interact with your creatures. There's many scientists who've done all kinds of scientific experiments that are much more static. One of the nice things about digital media is we make very dynamic scientific experiments. So there's people who lay a stick across the leafcutter nest or leafcutter trail, and then I see, okay, it takes them usually 3 hours before they go around the stick. With a digital device, we can have this weirdness where we have a stick that's across their path, but only 50% of the time. So does that mean it'll take them 6 hours to go around it? Or do they still go around it in 3 hours? What happens? So we're adding this element of dynamicity into that. And it becomes this toy for kind of probing and prodding in the world that we could then later develop into a much more official experiment. This is my buddy Peter, who actually helped me collect some of the bugs that are in this class. When I say bugs, for example, real quick, I'm making usually a horrible biologist mistake, and I should be saying insects, because bugs are actually one specific type of insects, like stink bugs. Those are actual bugs. Bed bugs, I think, are real bugs too. I might be sloppy, so don't tell me biologists on me. This guy studied these ants that live in these trees, and he wants to attack these trees in a very calibrated way. We also developed a sensor that can sense if the ants are in the way. And then next week, this is where we're going to be starting. So one day while I was out in the jungle, me and Peter, we had a hard day of field work. The sun started going down, and we're like, oh, I guess we should go home. And we're like, well, or should we just go deep into the jungle, as deep as we can? And so we just drove our truck as far down this little path as we could until we couldn't go any further. It was just pitch black, and suddenly, out of nowhere, came all these huge lightning bugs, about this big, and they're not like our lightning bugs. They have big lights on their shoulders too that are kind of always on, and they have a glowing butt that kind of flashes on and on like our regular ones. And they would just kind of drift through the woods, and we would encounter them. It was really neat. And they're actually the brightest insect in the world, I found out later. But so I had this experience, and I thought it was so amazing just seeing all these lights flow through the jungle. And I wanted to try to see if I could recreate this experience and see what it was like to do that from kind of the insect's point of view. So we played around with our insects and see how they fly and stuff like that. Mostly just have fun. But then I developed a project performance that we're going to recreate in our class starting next week, where we make these lightning bug costumes. And I'll show you more later, but we program these tiny little Arduino controllers. They get feedback from a little thing that we pop in our mouth, so we can't talk, so we're more like a creature, a not-human creature. And then it leads to all these lights that we affix to shirts that can shirt. And whenever you bite down on this little sensor, your butt will flash the pattern that you've programmed in of the specific species of lightning bug that you're hoping to attract. And the males and females flash differently and stuff like that. And so it's really cool. We'll learn all about this project next week. Here's some pictures from when we actually did the performance of it. So a set of people walking down. So you can see their shoulder lights were always on, but their butts would flash different specific patterns. They're also different colors too. Here's a picture with a flash so you can see actually how it was arranged. So They all had shoulders. This is the controller right here, and this is the butt that let that little light trail go by. Quick, finalizing this. The origins of how this class came out. So remember Dwayne? Remember we're doing crafts. We're not just looking at technology, bridging people, places, stuff like that. We also wanted to create a space in our graduate program where people could play around with a lot of this physical computing stuff, because there's not much physical computing work that really goes on around Georgia Tech, especially in our program. So we had this informal thing where we'd get together on Fridays that me and Dr. Nietzsche started, called CoLab, where we all just taught each other how to do stuff like this. It became pretty successful, and with Michael Nietzsche, we got this technology grant to get about $10,000 to get you guys all these fantastic things and all of this prototyping equipment and soldering stations and all kinds of stuff to work with. So we spent more than $1,000 per student on this class because there's only 7 of you. So that's pretty awesome. So you guys should feel very lucky that we get to, you'll have pretty much exclusive access to all this equipment for the entire semester. So that's really cool. You get to learn how to use it all. And so from that, then birthed this class. And so we got this technology, and we're like, well, we need to build a class from this. And so they're like, Andy, do you want to teach a class? And I'm like, okay, sure. So then I put together this class, and we're going to have fun learning together. It's going to be very nice. And we already had a dog in the class. I'm very happy. Cool. So now we got ants over there. Let's stop looking at that. Let's flip on some lights. How much time we got?
Your thing is dying.
It's what?
Your thing is done.
Let it die. It will emulate life. You will feel what it's like to be a real mortal creature, laptop. You may not sip from the eternal juice of the wall. What time is it? 1:16. We have 10 minutes. So you guys, you need 2 boxes. Last week I gave you all a box, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your box for?
Stuff.
Prototype stuff. Or creatures. So now, since there's only 7 of you, you guys get an extra box. So you can have a prototyping box, put all your Arduinos and stuff in. You can also have a box to put your creatures in. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to build a type of interaction that tries to prevent interactions. And we're going to coat this walls of these creature boxes in a liquid Teflon. So very quickly, we're going to go outside. We're going to go into the... No, actually, we'll stay right here. But can somebody go and grab me a bunch of paper towels from the bathroom? And I'm going to show you guys how to put this liquid Teflon. Sure, just grab a bunch of stuff that we can make a mess of. And everybody can come over here. We're going to spend the rest of the class Tefloning some tubs. So, we have something like, bring ants in here. Yes, I brought some ants. Oh, ants. One of you's alive.
Oh, man. So many dead ones.
There's so many dead ones. So some ants do really well in captivity. Some ants will die within like an hour. But I'll teach you guys all how to collect and rear good kind of ants. These ants are actually probably pretty good, but they got lost. But you see what that ant's doing right now? Defying gravity. It's just walking straight up that side of that thing right there. And often, you want to be able to have some control over your creature and not have them escape all over a classroom and maybe share with the rest of the computational students. So, what we're going to do is we're going to take this stuff called insectislip. There it is. It's technically called fluon, and it is a liquid Teflon. So, a couple of warnings. It's quite an inert substance. It's very inert. It's not going to do anything to you unless it combusts. So while you're applying fluon, don't smoke. So if anyone has a secret cigarette on you right now, please extinguish it. What I should do is we're going to have, yeah.
Should we be collecting animals or just
You can, because it's a great thing to do just in regular life. I will also, we're going to have a set of like exercises, like homework exercises, where you guys will go find creatures in your environment. I'll do a field trip a little bit later this semester, showing you how to collect ants with an aspirator, which is a little set of tubes that you suck them into. Don't worry about it, it's interesting, it'll be fun. You can also just use tweezers, but if you need to suck up a bunch of ants, it's better this way. This stuff, if it combusts, then it releases these weird tiny particles and gives you something called chemical pneumonia, which you have symptoms very much like the flu, but you can't really cure it because it's not some sort of like virus or anything that's affecting you. Instead, it's just nasty chemicals that sit in your lung for about a month. So don't smoke while you put your bug cube on. Probably smoking is not a very good idea in general. So there's Andy's PSA over there. What you're going to do is you're going to take your tub, go like this, remove this tub over here, so we don't need it right now. We're going to set down some paper towels on a little bench. And then, oh, that's not what I want. You're going to go inside of it. You take this. You're just going to go start at the bottom. You try to go all in one motion, one smooth motion. Go all the way around the bottom. So I went all the way around the bottom once. I'm going to add another stripe just above it. You guys get that? And this will basically set up an incredibly slippery plane once it dries, so the insects will be unable to walk up. So you can freak out your friends by having a whole jar of ants that the ants will never actually flee from. Or it could be other types of bugs and things, even certain other types of animals, not insects, you can't really get up to that level. So, that's how you do it. Here's the jar, here's the fluon. Let's have you guys glue on some more buckets. So, there's only 7 of us. Let's go for it. There? Yeah. What we can do is there's multiple brushes, so we can have more of that. Let's, can somebody wheel around another one of these carts and we can set up a whole other station?
There's a bunch over there.
Oh, okay, yeah. We can do it over there. You don't need to wheel this around. We'll do it with this back cart. Oh, you can have it. I'll get you guys more boxes.
It's really big. And I also have a cool book thingy that
Did you not get a book?
I didn't get a book.
Oh, really? Yeah, I'll get you one. All right, let me get one or not. Keep helping each other.
What I'll do is like, do we just leave them on here? Yeah, so then we'll run out of space.
Yeah, no, let's just like use a bunch of these. So like if we'll have one.
Do you have a bunch?
Do you have a bunch?
Exactly. Oh, are you guys gonna
If
come
you
now?
want to do it on top of this thingy.
Yeah, I'm ready for the towel. This is cool on. Okay. I believe in you.
And then this will be the next one. And it'll be one more.
You know, like, it's just
more boxes. Grab boxes. Here's your book.
Thank you.
How much time we have?
1 minute.
Yeah.
So what you want to do is you want to try not to have the bubbles. The bubbles are bad. That's okay. It'll still be fine. But in terms of aesthetics, of application, you want less of the bubbles.
Okay.
Are we supposed to leave this here tonight?
Yeah, leave it down there. This one's probably dry enough that we can just set it over here now. And then, yeah, start the next one. And like, we're just gonna make it a class rule. Anytime you're done with this class, wash your hands. Yeah. Okay, you guys keep doing that. Make it our stuff.
I don't mean to be a wheelchair, but I have class after this, so I need to leave now.
Yeah, we're here. Just stripe one up. Stripe it up. Super quick.
Can I hand this in to you now?
Yes.
Put it here.
Yeah. Your concern forms. Turn them into me. And if there's any extra concerns, let me know.
So what? Where's the
Oh,
one?
can you put, I'll start with stationery. She's gonna put the towel out here, maybe put them on there so they can dry. On the windowsill?
Yeah, it smells like. Should we take a box after it's
Oh,
ready and go, or let them dry over there?
We'll let them dry in the corner.
Where's another one?
Did I have one?
Ready?
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll support.
We're gonna make use of so many of these surfaces that never get used in the computer lab.
Alright, got another one.
Nice. Cool. Oh, you striped it. Get out of here.
No, I
Oh, you
not.
didn't.
I
Hurry up and
didn't.
stripe it.
Okay, I'm trying.
Oh, you guys are good. You're working as a team.
Yay, thank you.
The brushes, set them on a towel and put it dry next to the,
Not guilty?
the other
Okay, I'll
ones
put
too.
them on.
Oh, thank you.
These where they're all fluoning.